Hello and welcome everyone. This is Sagnik Banik, a student of Computer Science and Engineering Department of Kuch Behar Government Engineering College from the batch of 2020. The topic that I am going to discuss is how to start preparing for a technical interview. This session is going to be specifically dedicated to all students belonging from the Computer Science and Engineering Department, and also for the students willing to join the IT industry. So if you're someone looking for entry-level job opportunities in the IT field, this video is for you. So before starting, let me tell you that I'm not an expert and I might not be the perfect person to explain the topic in detail and accuracy, but I will try to cover as much as possible. I will be just sharing my own experience and some small tips and tricks that can help you get through the interview process. There are many questions that arises among freshers before preparing or sitting for an interview. I have also received some questions from the juniors of my college and will surely try to answer them all. Keep watching till the end of the video to get all your answers. I will be dividing the video into two parts. The first part, I will focus on the preparations and the CV making process, and on the latter part, I'll share my experience at 3 interviews. So, without much ado, let's start. Firstly, let me throw some light on the preparations. Your preparation for an interview should eventually start by the beginning of your second year in college. That's the time when we all try to learn and grasp new programming languages and experiment with new technologies. We all need to realize that the pace of evolution of technologies is quite fast. Even with the universities changing their subjects and curriculums every 4 to 5 years, it's still difficult to match up with pace of the continuously changing industry. And hence, a gap always exists between academia and the industry. And we, as students, have to bridge that gap as much as possible in order to land up with a good job offer. The inter-semester breaks provide a good time when we can sharpen our skills a bit. Hence, it's essential not to sit idle in these breaks and rather indulge in some training programs. The mode of the training programs can be either online or offline. There are plenty of training institutes in metropolitan cities that provide technical programs in classrooms. So, in our semester breaks, we can join for the programs where we need to attend classes for 3 to 4 days in a week, and maybe the rest of the days we can enjoy our holidays. Now, the question that arises in most of us is where to start with. Well, I would personally suggest to start with either Java or Python. The question of whether Python is better than Java is a long debated topic of the decade. I would say both have their own importance. Java has been there for a fairly long time and is not expected to be deprecated anytime soon. And on the other hand, Python has evolved as a powerful general purpose programming language and has spread its wings over every domain. So, both are actually powerful and useful, and neither of them is going to be outdated. Just start with any one you like. It's completely your personal preference. Some people prefer Python because it has done away with semicolons and the syntax is relatively very small and precise. I would say choose the one you like. Now, after you have got your hands on any one of them, don't try to jump from one programming language to the other and try to grasp everything at once. This creates confusion and gives rise to syntax errors while switching languages. Just stick to one of them and try to master it as much as possible. The next thing that you should focus on learning is the application of the technology that you have just learned. If you like web development or Android development, you can dive into it deeper and deeper. If you're not comfortable with classroom classes within semester breaks, you can alternatively go for online training platforms. There are plenty of them. And with the advancement in technology, the online platforms has also emerged as a powerful learning tool. Learning web and Android developments can surely get you entry-level jobs in service-based companies. The domain is huge and there's no end to learning. If you have chosen Python as your preferred language, you can try learning Django. Or if you have taken Java, you can try learning the Java Spring framework. Alternatively, if you want to learn PHP, you can either learn custom PHP or focus on frameworks like Laravel or Cognizant. On the other hand, if you are more into the likes of Android development, you can learn Kotlin or React Native or just the Android SDK. Or if you're aiming to become a front-end developer, you can learn JavaScript frameworks like React.js and Vue.js. You can also learn Angular, but it might not be very easy to grasp at first. It is also quite necessary to learn some niche technologies if you're aiming for product-based companies. Such technologies include cloud computing, machine learning, artificial intelligence, or cybersecurity. Especially for machine learning or artificial intelligence, knowing Python very well is a big plus. For cloud computing, no specific knowledge of programming language is required, but the knowledge of the Unix-based operating systems and shell programming is going to be advantageous. And the same goes for the cybersecurity domain. Now let us focus on preparing a CV or curriculum vitae. Let me tell you one thing very clearly. The design of a CV and the colors you use is of least importance. No one checks that out. What matters is the format and the content. The content for a fresher's CV is essentially your skill set, your projects, trainings, and internships, and your academic performance, of course. Try to keep all academic details like your secondary marks, your high secondary marks, and your semester marks in a tabular or table format. In that way, it is clearly noticeable at one glance. One small advice that I would like to give is that if your semester marks have been progressively increasing every semester and you are on the linearly increasing graph, you can give your semester-wise breakup. But for the most of us, it is not the same. It is often the case that we get good marks in one semester and the next semester we tend to get overconfident and ultimately get less than the previous one. That's quite the normal scenario. In such a case, do not provide the semester-wise breakup of your marks. It is better you provide the semester aggregate or the average of all semesters till date. The next important thing to highlight is your trainings and your skill sets. Just writing that you know Python isn't enough. You should have undertaken a project in Python. Only mention all the skills that you're confident of. If you have forgotten some technology that you once used to know, ignore that. Don't mention that in your CV as it may bring additional trouble to you during an interview. If you have undertaken projects as a part of your online or offline training programs, mention that. Or if you don't have enough projects in your bag, alternatively, you can mention your academic projects like Visual Basics or C or any other programming language. Knowledge of any one object-oriented programming language is very essential, and you can expect to get a lot of questions from OOPS in your interviews. If you're good in Java, only then mention Java. Or if you're good in Python, mention only Python. Don't mention both if you're not absolutely confident. This will give rise to a large number of cross questions here and there in interviews. And you're likely to mess that up. Now, try to keep that CV within one page. Interviewers do not like to see 2 to 3 pages for a CV for a fresher recruitment. Mention your personal details like name, email address, contact number, contact address on the top. If you have done a lot of projects and internships, you can mention that into one single heading like projects and internships. If you don't have many in your bag, you can break that up into trainings section where you can mention all online or offline courses you have undertaken, including NPTEL or SWAYAM. And on the other part, you can mention your academic projects. You can also have a skill set section where you can mention the important skills that you know. Also, keep in mind, do not write skills that you're not too confident about. Try to make the CV as much concise and professional as possible so that it clearly portrays your interest for joining the industry. Now, let's move on to the latter part of the video, where I promised to share my interview experience. TCS NQT was the first off-campus examination that is generally held in the last week of July, and it was a CBT, meaning a computer-based test. And if you qualify the test, you will be called for an interview. The date and time is usually mentioned in an email from TCS. The exam had two sections, the MCQ section and the coding section. The MCQ section further had three parts: the verbal ability, that is your English test, followed by your quants, and then the programming logic MCQs. And the second part is the coding, where a problem statement will be given and you need to write a program in any one of your desired programming language. It can be C, it can be C++, Python or Java. In some cases, the program might fail to run through all test cases. But don't worry. If you have done well in your MCQ section, you can still be called for an interview. TCS Ninja is the entry-level position at TCS, and TCS Digital is the higher position, where the pay package is something around 7 to 8 lakh per annum. If you had opted for both TCS Ninja and TCS Digital positions, after qualifying the first exam, you will be called for another exam, specifically for TCS Digital. The TCS Digital is a little tough to crack, the questions are much harder, and the coding problem is also a little bit difficult. But with adequate practice and preparation, you can crack it. Now, before telling you about the questions that I was asked in the interview, let me first tell you my own mantra for interviews. The first question that is usually asked is introduce yourself. If you let the interviewer take your interview. If you get this question, consider yourself very lucky. The way you answer this question determines your selection. As in my case, I was fortunate enough to have been asked this question. What I did was, I started with my introduction and then shifted my focus to projects. In most cases, you won't get more than 2 minutes to answer this question. Midway, the interviewer can stop you and start asking questions. Hence, it is advisable not to disclose everything at once and give the interviewer some space to intervene and ask you questions. Suppose you start with introduction and stop with I've done a lot of projects. Again, don't answer everything and stop where you want the interviewer to question you. Like in my case, I started describing my advanced Java project and ended up with the word Hibernate. I intentionally threw the word because I wanted to be questioned on Hibernate. The next question was from the interviewer's side, what is Hibernate? And I was lucky because I had expected that question from the interviewer. I answered that it is an ORM, meaning object-oriented relational mapping tool, and that one can map each tuples or rows of a database to each Java object, and every column is mapped with Java class variables. I ended by saying that to know ORM, we must know about relational database systems. So here again, I intentionally threw the question. The next question that followed from the interviewer was, what is relational database? And it was expected. So basically, I let the interviewer take the interview in my own tailored way and not the other way around. The interview did not take my interview in his way. So this is what I follow in order to keep the process go in my own desired way. And at last, there are some questions on OOPS. What is the inheritance? What is polymorphism? What is, compile time polymorphism? And that was it. These are the most expected questions in interviews. You may also be asked to write a code or be asked questions based on what you have written on your CV. That was the end of the technical round, and the next part was HR round. In the HR round, the questions that you are asked are always more or less the same in fresher interviews. Why do you want to join the company? So you can prepare an answer for that. Are you okay with the relocation? Are you comfortable with night shifts? And so on. One thing you should keep in mind is that if you have problems with night shift or relocation, don't mention that in your interviews. It increases your chances of rejection. Just say that you don't have any issues. You can be asked questions like, would you like the position of a software tester? Even if you're not into software testing and like development mode, don't say that you don't want to be a tester straight away. Alternatively, you can say something like, I would love to be a part of the development team, but if I'm given the position of a software tester, I would be glad to take that up as a job. If you say no, you may get rejection straight away. So these questions can be very tricky at times. So give these general HR questions a thought before facing the interview. One more thing that I would like to mention is that sometimes companies do stress testing. That is, they will ask you a question. Even if you're right, they may simply tell you you are wrong. Again, they will ask you a question, and irrespective of your answer, they will tell you that you're wrong. This is generally a stress test, and they check how much stable you are during a stress situation. So don't get panicked and keep your calm. And always keep smiling throughout the interview process. The next two interviews that I faced was Cognizant and Infosys. Both of them were pooled campusing, that is organized by the help of training and placement cell of the college. In a pooled campus, companies call students from multiple colleges to one particular host college. In our case, Cognizant had taken an online examination. The exam was conducted by aspiring minds and strictly followed the MCAT protocol. That is, it had verbal ability, logical, quants, and automata fix. The last section, automata fix, was quite new to us. In this section, an erroneous code is written and you need to correct the errors that are present in the code. In some cases, you might have to write your own code. For example, there can be a semicolon at the end of a while loop, which can make it go into an infinite loop. Similarly, there can be incorrect variables used, or a greater than sign can be put in place of a less than operator. After you clear the exam, you will be called for the interview, which can be hosted in any college. Like in our case, we were supposed to attend the interview at Guwahati University. Some of us were excited, others were disappointed. It may be particularly difficult for some to go to another state for an interview, considering the financial expenditure required. But for others, it can give you a new, fresh experience. So coming back to the interview process, the technical round of Cognizant was quite difficult, and I would say the most difficult interview that I have faced so far. Not just me, but my batchmates would also agree to the fact. Questions were randomly asked from everywhere, from algorithms to data structures to database systems or even operating systems. So you need to prepare very well before facing the Cognizant interview. I was asked questions from OOPS and database systems. And also, I was asked to write a code. The coding problem that they might not be very easy, like a prime number or a Fibonacci. One of my friends was asked to write a program using merge sort to sort 10 numbers in an array. So the level of questions is expected to be a bit hard. Again, if you're well prepared, nothing is really hard. The last interview that I faced was of Infosys. They had called us for an off-campus drive consisting of students from all government colleges of West Bengal. There was a CBT, that is a computer-based test, and it was kind of average. The questions were not too hard, but the cutoff they had put was on the higher side. After qualifying the test, I was called for the interview the next day. The interview was as expected. A lot of questions were particularly asked from OOPS and DBMS. Also, many of us were asked to write down a code on spot. But again, if you don't have a lot of projects in your hand to place on the table, and if you can describe each one of them in detail, you might not be asked too many questions if you just focus on your academic projects or your training programs. But if the number of projects you have done is very limited, you can expect to be given a coding problem. This was a pooled campus drive from Infosys. Also remember that Infosys also conducts an off-campus drive in the name of InfitiQ. You can register for the off-campus drive through the InfitiQ app that is available on Play Store. The InfitiQ exam is generally held after your 5th semester, so be prepared accordingly. You can choose either Java or Python. No matter which one you choose, the difficulty of the questions asked in the online examination is very tough, and you must be prepared accordingly. This is the reason I suggest to stick to either Python or Java. Don't try to master both simultaneously. Rather focus on the advanced part like advanced Java or advanced Python. The P packages offered through InfoTQ is progressively higher with every level you pass. The first level is the one with the entry level package, something around 3 to 3.6 LPA. If you qualify the first level, you will be able to sit for the next level, the one with the 5 LPA package. If you qualify the second level, you will be able to go to the highest entry level package offered, that is around 8 LPA. So through InfoTQ, you will have the option to improve your package. Whereas for pooled or on-campus drives, the package is mostly fixed at 3.6 LPA, and you might not get the chance to improve your package. So with that, I have almost come to an end. I have tried to cover all of it in brief as much as I could, and I will now take up questions that I have received from my juniors. The first question that I have received is, I want to know how to cope with a post-COVID job scenario. What are the necessary skills that might help to secure a job? Okay, so in the post-COVID job scenario, the situation is going to be a little bit difficult. Why difficult? Because most of the companies has promised that they will be giving joining letters to all the offers that they have issued for the 2020 batch. So if they are going to respect all the offers, then it is probable that for the next batch, they might cut down on the number of recruitments. But if you have adequate skills, obviously you can ace through the interview. And like I have already mentioned, the necessary skills, it can be either the niche skills like cloud computing, or machine learning, artificial intelligence. You should be very good at competitive programming, or you should be a good developer. You can be an Android developer, you can be a PHP developer. So learning specific programming languages and focusing on the advanced part of it is essential, because that will give you an edge in the interview process. The next question is, how much importance should be given to soft skills? This is a very particular question, and I'm glad this question has been asked. Soft skills is very important. Soft skills meaning your communication skills. Sometimes I've also seen that your technical knowledge might not be very strong, but if your vocabulary, if your communication skill, the way you talk, if it is good, then they might hire you. So focusing on your soft skills and your communication skills is very important. You can do that on online training platforms. There are many training platforms where you can learn communication skills, so focus on that. The next question is on upcoming revolutionary technologies. Upcoming revolutionary technologies. Okay. It is definitely going to be either cloud computing, cybersecurity, machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics. But on the same hand, as these technologies gather more importance, technologies like Java or Python or front-end or Android development is not going to fade away. So revolutionary technologies indeed are the niche technologies that I've already talked about. But similarly, you should also focus on the existing technologies like Java, Python, PHP, Android, JavaScript, and so on. How to decide which domain to pursue? See, this is completely a personal choice. It depends on what you like. If you like designing HTML page, if you like CSS, if you like JavaScript, making a dynamic website, then you might go for a front-end developer. But if you're more interested in connections to database, handling the backend part, the structure, the coding part, then you might go for a backend developer. If you like Android, you can become an Android developer. If you like Python, you can go for Django for the web development. For niche technologies like machine intelligence or deep learning, you have to focus on Python, because that will give you an edge in today's world. So these are the domains that you can pursue, and completely it is your choice. If you are more of a research oriented person, then it is better and it is most advisable you stick with either Python, or for big data, you can learn R programming language. How to prepare for GATE? Okay, this is a question not specifically targeted for this video, but I'll try to answer this. The GATE preparation essentially requires 1 to 1.5 years, and you have to focus mostly on the subjects that have been taught in the second year and the third year. So we'll have to focus more on the theoretical aspect rather than on the practical aspect. If you get adequately 4 to 5 months and you study dedicatedly, you can obviously crack through GATE. So you need to dedicate some time for yourself so that you're continuously in touch with the subjects. The next question is how to prepare for interviews. I've already answered this, and this is the basis on which I have made this video. Please watch the full video. And the next question is what are the major lessons that you learned after getting into the interview which might have helped if you had known earlier? This is a very good question. One question that I think would have been beneficial for me is whether I would like to be a tester. So one of my friend was there. He said that no, I don't want to be a tester. I don't want to take up the job as a tester. So he got straight away rejected. So had we known that we would have prepared ourselves better for the interview. And one more thing is that after an interview, don't go and ask the interviewer unnecessarily, how was my interview, sir? So you can ask other questions. If an interviewer says, if you have a question to ask, you can obviously ask questions like, what are the company's policies? How do I improve my P package, and so on. But don't go on questioning, how was my interview? Will I be selected or not? Don't ask these questions. So with that, I've already come to an end of the video. Thank you for watching, and do subscribe, and keep preparing for the interviews, and hope you do well for the future. All the best. Thank you so much.